Welcome to the IVF Journey with Dr. Michael Chapman, the podcast for couples who struggle with infertility and want to fulfill their dreams of becoming parents. In this podcast, you'll learn actionable strategies to deal with infertility from Dr. Michael Chapman, or Prof as he's affectionately known. Prof is the co-founder of IVF Australia and is a leading Australian infertility specialist who has helped over 3,000 couples realise their dreams of becoming parents. To access previous episodes packed with ideas, solutions and tips that actually work, head over to Dr. Chapman's IVF podcast on iTunes. You can also ask questions by contacting Dr. Chapman's rooms on 1-800-111-483 or by emailing him michael.chapman@ivf.com.au.
That first cry of a baby born after the long journey of IVF remains one of the most beautiful experiences in the world. As an obstetrician and an IVF specialist, I've had the privilege of experiencing this over many thousands of times in my long career, but I still remain moved by each baby's first cry. It signifies the end of a long journey and the beginning of a new life. This is Professor Michael Chapman, co-founder of IVF Australia and host of the IVF Journey podcast. Thanks for tuning in. To access all the previous episodes, head over to my website, www.theivfjourney.com, and select IVF Journey Podcast from the navigation menu. You'll also be able to find the various services that we provide at IVF Australia. Today we're going to talk about, for some people, the next step in the journey. This is for people who may have tried IVF or aren't able to have IVF with their own eggs, and they make a decision not to give up, but to use another woman's eggs to create the pregnancy that they so desperately want. So egg donation. The interesting biological fact is that provided a woman has a uterus, no matter what her age, there was recently a lady of 71 with donor eggs who got pregnant in some foreign country. Personally, I think that was unethical, but anyway, it is what she proved was what I was about to say, which is that your uterus, provided with the right hormone environment, is capable of carrying a child. So a woman at 24 whose ovaries have failed for some reason, provided that she's given hormone replacement therapy to bring the lining of the womb into a normal state, can carry a child. Or a woman at 50 who's postmenopausal can carry a child. And increasingly women over the age of 45, where even though you have eggs, the odds of a pregnancy are so low because of the abnormalities in those eggs, are turning to egg donation. Certainly in the United States, if you go along to a clinic and you're 43 plus, most doctors, most fertility specialists are recommending egg donation rather than try an IVF cycle with your own eggs. Personally, I think that's being a little aggressive in terms of egg donation as an answer, because I do see pregnancies in women 43 plus. They're not common, but they do occur. If you asked what the pregnancy rate for a 43-year-old was in our clinic, I'd be telling you it was somewhere between 3 and 5%. 44, it drops off a little bit, and by 45, it's probably only 1 or 2% chance. But for those women who want to pursue to the absolute limit their desire to have a biological child that is like them, I believe that these women should be offered that as an option. There are a number of clinicians who think that that's a waste of time and money, but for me, I see many women who want to go the whole way because they don't want to look back and say maybe. When they're 55 years old and they didn't try IVF when they were 45, then I think, or they think, they will regret. So going through an IVF cycle at that age, I think, is worthwhile if a woman is driven to have her own biological offspring. Having done that, however, or having made a decision they don't want to go for that such a low risk, there is egg donation. And with egg donation into a biologically prepared uterus, we can be very confident of a pregnancy, because as long as the eggs come from a young donor, less than 30, she has the same chance as a 30-year-old, not as a 45-year-old. The age of the egg donor is vital in producing good pregnancy rates. Those eggs coming from younger women are available in many places around the world. Unfortunately, in Australia, mainly because of the general ethical framework in Australia, which doesn't allow the payment of donors. We don't pay for kidney donors, we don't pay for blood donors, and the NHMRC Ethics Committee felt that it would be unreasonable to break that basic framework by offering payment to egg donors. In the United Kingdom, recently, donors have been deemed to be payable, not a huge amount of money, in Australian terms something in the order of 1,500 Australian dollars. In other countries around the world, donors are paid similar amounts of money and are able to provide their eggs through an IVF program. In Australia, because of the absence of payment, we find an altruistic egg donor is very rare to come by. In Australia, most egg donation that's done is done from a friend, a relative, a younger friend, a younger relative. But there are not many people who are prepared to do that, even for their friends. So in Australia, most people who reach the point of saying, I want egg donation, are now going overseas. Countries where it is not illegal to undertake egg donation, it's not illegal to pay the donors. When people sit in front of me and ask where to go, I give them various options, mainly based around individuals I know or individual clinics that I know by reputation around the world. Also places where I've had patients go in the past and been successful. The countries that I would say have high standards of IVF in terms of quality and success rates are probably three. The first is Spain, and Spain has the biggest egg donation program in the world. A clinic called IVI have a huge egg bank of women who've donated their eggs in the ages of 22 to 28. Their success rates are very good, and the fact that it's a bank means that the couple can fly in at the right time of a cycle and have the husband's sperm fertilise that egg and the embryo put back 5 days later and then fly back to Australia. I've also had a good success in South Africa. There are a couple of clinics there that I know the standards are extremely high, and I've had multiple pregnancies there. And there's obviously the United States. Not all states in the United States, but most states, it is not illegal to have egg donation. And there are certainly big egg banks that have been set up in the United States. Sometimes then it comes down to cost. Obviously there's the cost of travel internationally, and that can be a burden. The second is comparing between clinics and success rates and the money you pay. Now, all of those three countries that I've mentioned, I believe the success rates are really quite similar, all very good. And so on success, I wouldn't really differentiate between them. However, clinics in the United States are renowned for being more expensive than the European or the South African clinics. But some people prefer to go to the States because they believe the science and the quality and the assurance processes are more likely to be rigorous there. I really probably believe that, from my knowledge of the specific clinics that I recommend in Spain and in South Africa, there probably is no difference. They're all extremely good. So once a patient has made contact with a clinic and they are provided with the recipe that that particular clinic follows, and they do vary in the hormones they want to give and the adjuvant therapies that they want to give and what investigations they need done before a patient comes to them. Most clinicians are prepared in Australia to provide the testing that is required and to assist in whatever medications are required. So Once the patient has established a relationship with that clinic overseas, they'll commence their therapies, and the timing of moving to that country for somewhere between 5 and 20 days will be decided when they're going to go. Most of the overseas clinics can direct couples to accommodation near the clinics. And so it is actually, these days, a very organised process where the clinics go out of their way to assist you in getting there. Once you're there, the actual process is similar worldwide in terms of embryo transfer. Everybody does things pretty similarly. One piece of advice, and I know in some clinics, in countries other than those that I've spoken about, there'll be an attempt to put back more than 2 embryos. I have to say I'm very opposed to that. There's no question that it increases the chance of pregnancy, but it also, if you end up with triplets or quadruplets, increases the risk of losing them all. Sadly, I have one patient who, at the age of 48, came home delighted that she was pregnant for me to do the first scan and find triplets because they'd put 3 embryos back. Sadly, at 23 weeks, all 3 were lost after going into premature labour. So my advice, do not let them put more than 2 embryos back, and basically I'm a great believer, as I've said before, in single embryo transfer. On return to Australia or to your home country, making contact with the fertility clinic specialist and watching that pregnancy through its early stages is important, reassuring for you and ensuring that the pregnancy has the greatest chance of being successful. Pregnancies from egg donation have increased risks of high blood pressure, preeclampsia at the end of the day, and small babies. So you should be looked after by a real specialist in obstetrics, not just a generalist. Some of that is related to the fact that most of these egg donations are occurring in women of older age, where those particular problems do occur more frequently, even in a natural conception. But even in younger women, it appears that having genetic material for the embryo which is wholly not that of the recipient, in other words, their immunology and all their genetics is different to yours, there seems to be an increased risk of preeclampsia in particular. So these are very important pregnancies. Obviously, there's a lot of time, effort and money being invested, and it's very important that you're looked after by people who understand what's going on. But egg donation really does produce the wanted child for many couples who've tried and tried and tried with their own eggs, and this has been the solution for them. And there are very many happy parents doting on these donated egg pregnancies. And don't forget that you can access all the previous episodes by going to our website www.theivfjourney.com and select IVF Journey Podcast from the navigation menu.
Thank you for listening to the IVF Journey with Dr. Michael Chapman, the podcast which helps couples negotiate their way through the IVF journey, all the way to parenthood. You can also ask questions by contacting Dr. Chapman's rooms on 1800 111 483 or by emailing him michael.chapman@ivf.com.au.